cannot take responsibility for items damaged in transit. The captain of your vessel was given warning at time of loading that it was not suitable for the carriage of robots, and so damaged cargo cannot be charged to our account. Yours faithfully, Rossum's Universal Robots. Is that it now?
Yes.
New letter. Friedrichsburg, Hamburg. Date. We are pleased to confirm your order for 15,000 robots. It was 1920 when old Rossum, still a young man but a great scientist, came to this isolated island in order to study robots. So, alongside his studies, he made several attempts to synthesize the chemical structure of living tissue known as protoplasm, and eventually he discovered a material that behaved like protoplasm despite being chemically quite different. This was all in 1932, exactly 440 years after the discovery of America.
Do you know all that by heart?
I do. Physiology really isn't my subject. Shall I carry on?
If you like.
And then Miss Glory. This is what you wrote down in his chemical notes. Nature has found only one way of organizing living matter. There is, however, another way, which is simpler, easier to mold, and quicker to produce than nature ever stumbled across. This other path alongside which life might have developed from is what I've discovered. Just think. He's writing this all down about a pile of some kind of colloidal jelly that not even a dog would eat. Imagine him sitting with a test tube, thinking about how it could grow out into an entire tree of life made of all the animals, starting with a tiny coil of life and ending with man. Man made of different material than we are, Miss Glory. This was one of the great moments of history.
What happened next?
Next he had to get this life out of the test tube and speed up its development so it would create the organs needed, such as bone and nerves and so on, and find the materials, such as catalysts and enzymes and hormones, and in short, Miss Gloria, you're understanding all this.
Perhaps not all of it.
I don't understand any of it. It's just, with this slime, he could have created whatever he wanted. He could have made a Medusa with the brain of Socrates, or a worm 15 meters long. But old Rossum, he didn't have a trace of humor about him, so he got it into his head to create normal vertebrae, such as a human being. That's what he started doing.
What exactly was it that he tried to do?
Imitating nature. First, he tried to make an artificial dog. It took him years and years, and the end result was something like a malformed deer that died after a few days. I can show it to you in the museum. And after that, he started working on a human being.
And that's what I'm not allowed to tell anyone?
No one whatsoever.
Pity it's in the papers then.
That is a pity. However, I will tell you something that's not in the papers. It's that old Rossum was completely mad. Seriously, he was quite mad. Keep that to yourself. He seriously wanted to make a complete human being.
But that's what you do, isn't it?
Yes, something like that, but old Rossum meant it completely literally. He wanted to, in some scientific way, take the place of God. He was a convinced materialist, and that's why he wanted to do everything, just to prove that there was no God needed. That's how he got the idea of making a human being, just like you or me, down to the smallest hair. Miss Glory, do you know anything about anatomy?
Not really, no.
Neither do I. It's just think how old Rossum got it into his head to make everything. Every gland, every organ, just as they are in the human body. The appendix, the tonsils, the belly button, even things with no function, and even the sexual organs.
But the sexual organs, well, they
do have a function, I realize that, but if people are going to be made artificially, there really isn't much point.
I see what you mean.
In the museum, I'll show you the monstrosity he created over the 10 years he was working. It was supposed to be a man that lasted only 3 days. This thing was just horrible what he did. Old Rossum really had no taste whatsoever. And on the inside, it had all the things a man was supposed to have, really. The detailed work was quite amazing. Then Miss Glory. Then old Rossum's nephew came out here. Now this man, Miss Glory, he was a genius. He saw what the old man was doing and said instantly that this is just ridiculous, spending 10 years of your time trying to make a man. If you can't do it quicker than nature, then why not just give up on it? And he started studying anatomy himself.
That's not what they say in the papers either.
What they say in the papers are paid advertisements and all sorts of nonsense. What they say is is that the old man invented the robots himself. What the old man did might have been all right for a university, but he had no idea about industrial production. What he wanted to do was make real people, real professors, or real Indians, or real idiots. It was young Rossum who had the idea of making the robots into a living, breathing workforce. What the papers say about the two great men working together is just a fairy tale. In fact, they never stop arguing. The old atheist had no idea about industry and commerce, and the young man ended up shutting him up in his laboratory where he could play around with his great scientific failures while he got to the real work in a proper scientific way. Old Rossum literally cursed him. He continued in his laboratory, producing 2 more physiological monstrosities until one day they found him dead. And that's the whole story.
And then what did the young one do?
Oh man, young Rossum. The start of a new age. After the age of research came the age of production. Now young Rossum took a good hard look at the human body and saw instantly that it was much too complicated. Any good engineer would design it much more simply, so he got to work, redesigning the entire anatomy, seeing what he could throw out and simplify and enjoy. This story is not boring, you know?
No, quite the opposite. This is fascinating.
Well, young Rossum said to himself, man is a being who likes to do things such as feeling happiness, go for walks, plays the violin, and all sorts of things which just aren't needed.
I see.
No, wait, which just aren't needed for activities such as weaving or calculating. A petrol engine doesn't need ornaments or tassels on it, and making an artificial worker is just like making a petrol engine. You see, the simpler you make the production, the better you make the product. Miss Gloria, what sort of worker do you think is the best?
The best sort of worker? Well, I suppose someone who is honest and dedicated.
No. The best sort of worker is the cheapest worker. The one that has the least needs. What young Rossum invented was a worker that has the least needs possible. He had to make them simpler. To say, he threw out everything that wasn't in his direct use of work. That's to say, he threw out the man and put in the robot. Miss Gloria, robots are not human. They're mechanically much better than we are. They have an amazing ability of understanding things. They don't have a soul. What young Rossum invented was something much more sophisticated than nature ever made. Technically, at least.
They do say that man was created by God.
So much the worse for them. God had no idea about modern technology. Did you know that young Rossum, while he was still alive, was playing at God?
And how was he doing that?
He tried to make super robots, working giants. He tried to make them 4 meters tall. But you wouldn't believe how those monstrosities kept breaking up.
Breaking up.
All of a sudden, no reason at all, an arm or a leg would just break. It seems that this world is just too small for monsters such as that. So now we just make them normal sizes, normal proportions.